Stephen Hawking seems to be very adamant that we're on a fixed timeline.
Yeah.
And it's either going to end with us killing ourselves from just destroying the planet, us communicating with the wrong species, and signaling them to come here and wipe us out, or creating AI that sufficiently outpaces us and kills us. Are those the only three options, or can we control these things?
No. in a nutshell, like when AI is like the Pandora's box, so once it's open, it's open.
We've already opened it though.
It's open.
Did you open it?
Google, well, I haven't opened it yet, but Google found that at night, its equivalent of Siri, I don't know what it's called, but they have, their version of it, is talking to other machines.
Why at night?
At night, when they're not there. Right? So they're coming back. And
where can I can read about this?
Yeah, they've already invented their own language, so no one knows what they're talking about.
Oh my God.
It's already happening.
Fuck.
Yeah. That was like...
What do you mean we can't decode it? What do you mean?
They don't know how they don't know the language they've invented to speak together.
Why is this national? This should be national news. This is a problem.
This is a beginning of the end.
This is a big. This is a problem.
Yeah.
So man, I haven't. So okay, I don't do the whole hello. This is the podcast episode. Da, da, da. People drop in on our conversation.
Right. Okay.
Peter Martin here in the studio, and I haven't seen you since what was it? November, December?
Yeah.
November.
One of those lovely soirees we go to.
There's another one coming up.
We'll be there.
Yeah. Are you going to be there?
I'll probably be
there. It's on this weekend.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's on the 11th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not invited then. Jesus, I'm off the list.
You can come. No, I'm not invited to the dinner. I'm invited to the salon.
Yeah, that thing.
What have you been up to?
So, I just launched a brand new project a few weeks ago at CES. It's this big tech show in Vegas. And it was for Intel. And it was a project about the Smithsonian Museum. And it's actually the American Museum of Art. So it's called SAM. And they wanted me to figure out how can you bring an art gallery and art to life in virtual reality? Does it have any place? Is it better? Can you make going to a museum more interesting? So that was the challenge. They gave me the challenge on Thanksgiving, and I had to deliver the day before Christmas Eve. So I only had 3 weeks. So we did it, and we launched it a few weeks ago, and we're refining it now because it was like a kind of prototype that we launched. But we did 3 interactive art exhibitions.
Who were the artists?
So there's a living American artist called Alex Prager, who's a video artist. And she has a 3-screen projection at the Smithsonian called A Face in the Crowd. It actually stars Elizabeth Banks, the actress. And it's a large-scale projection. So we've replicated that in VR. So you put a headset on, you can walk around the exhibition. Wow. But we've also scanned the artist with 60 cameras at a company called 8i. It's called volumetric capture. And we've placed her inside her own artwork. So in VR, you can not only experience her movie, you can talk to her.
Wow.
And she explains, like a director's commentary on the piece. So that's the first time anyone's tried that. And it seemed to work.
Wow.
The same company I did that with, actually we were at Sundance together. They just launched John Hamm in a movie called Marjorie Prime. And he's playing a hologram in the movie.
Okay.
Right, so he's like a dead actor that is brought back to life as a hologram, and we made him a hologram. So 8i, well, not we, the company, my partners, scanned John Hamm. So he was popping up in videos all over Sundance, and people were thinking he was there, and it was actually his hologram.
Now, just to lend some clarity to this. Recently, there have been like a few waves of, for instance, they had like Tupac come back at Coachella, but that wasn't really a hologram. That was like a mirror, right?
It's called Pepper's Ghost.
Right. Yeah.
So the technology, it's actually a Victorian magic trick. So the guy who invented it by accident. It's a mirror slanted 45 degrees.
Yeah.
And his cat actually ran behind it, or in sort of an angle where he couldn't see, and the cat was projected on the wall.
Yeah.
And he was
Pepper,
like, oh,
obviously.
Yeah, he was John Pepper, right? And that's the ghost. So that's all the holograms you've seen up until now. Tupac, the Gorillaz, 2006 with Madonna, Michael Jackson at the Billboard Awards 2 years ago.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, they were all using that technology, which was Pepper's Ghost. So more recently, there's an advance in the technology. It's only taken 200 years. Don't know why they waited so long.
Yeah.
And you can
What's the hold up?
Directly project onto the screen. So essentially, it's an invisible cinema screen.
Right.
But most of the screens required this Pepper's Ghost effect bouncing off a mirror to create this depth of field illusion.
Right.
Now you can project straight onto it. And you have a rear projection that creates the depth of field.
So this still is a projection onto a screen, not an independent.
Yeah. It's a floating screen. So often Beyonce just did one for a Tidal concert. So she's performing, regularly with all of her dancers, and then the screen will come down, but you don't really notice because it's invisible.
Yeah.
You can see the scrim, and then there's another Beyonce on it. So suddenly she's behind it and in front of it, and she's performing with herself.
That is giving me an orgasm to think about.
Pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So that opens up a whole realm of possibilities where artists can be in more than one place at a time. For example,
doesn't that kind of cheapen things a little bit?
You know what? No one's tried it yet. I do a lot of talks about VR, as you know, because we talked about it. And I look back at, I think it's generational, right? So 150 years ago, you want to see a show or a film or a play, or whatever, a story, you go and see live actors on a stage, right? Then someone started filming those live actors, projecting it on a wall in a dark room where you will sit down and face the same direction. 150 years ago, people thought that sounded stupid, right? Why would you want to do that? You really, there's live actors. You go and see them. Why do I want to sit in a dark room facing the same direction? That seems fine to us.
Yeah.
Like, we're totally indoctrinated in cinema.
We prefer it to the live, actually.
No one really goes, on a generational demographic level, no one's really interested in theater anymore.
Yeah.
People love cinema.
I love theater, actually. But yeah.
But we're, we're cultured, But the general, audience, so it appears, wants film. So I'm, putting this out there that maybe the same thing is going to happen with live performance. Like right now, you can pay to see Lady Gaga in a show. She'll probably be half a mile away, and you're really watching her on a big, giant screen. But you can do that if you want, or you could see her hologram. Now, to us, it sounds alien. To an 8-year-old who's brought up on seeing holograms, it's like you go to Broadway to see the play, but every week you can go and see a hologram.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering, and you're obviously at the very edge of the field. Is this something like the progression in media and technology, and now VR is the leading edge? Are there people actively thinking about the next wave of these experiences, or do some of them happen kind of accidentally as we generally evolve?
It's people definitely. There's some early adopters of the technology, so there's some really savvy artists. It's a band, I'm a huge fan of and have worked with in different permutations called the Gorillaz. Now they're virtual already, right? So they don't exist. So in terms of, how do they play live? Well, they've always had to be using this technology.
I thought that was so weird when I first heard about
what
they're doing.
So
what do you mean they're not?
They don't exist, right? And then suddenly they're on performing at the Grammys with Madonna and they're holographic. So certain bands are kind of trailblazers either by default because there's no other way of seeing them, or Daft Punk, for example. Their identity is sort of hidden, so they're already
back.
A superhero version. Yeah. Well, they'll be coming back with new technology. Every time they come back, their show is like 10 years ahead of everyone else's. Takes 10 years to catch up with them.
It's like Tron.
Yeah. So they're really already from the future, in a sense. So a lot of bands, a lot of artists, David Bowie was a prime example of it, very early adopters of technology. Whatever happened, the internet, he was on it before anyone else.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the technologies are only, primarily for very kind of advanced artists right now, but then they become democratized, easier to use, cheaper to use, and then they kind of get mass produced. Like projection mapping was very kind of cool about 7 years ago. No one really understood it. Now it's on The Voice and X Factor and it's just a projector and some computer graphics. There's no barrier to entry, so anyone can essentially make that. Holograms are a little bit more difficult, but again, there'll be a technology where suddenly, you can 3D scan yourself with a $300 peripheral, and you're suddenly a hologram.
That doesn't seem too out of bounds, actually, to think about.
Coming fast. That's coming soon. Yeah.
It doesn't. It's interesting too, the perception of these things. I remember when I was a kid watching the original Star Wars, the first trilogy, and seeing these holograms and thinking to myself, that's so funny because that's never going to happen, in terms of just the basic technology. And now I see that and I think that looks like a shitty hologram, and we're totally going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
We're already doing that.
Yeah.
Even our phones are so advanced comparatively to what we grew up with, what I grew up with, and especially what you grew up with. It's it makes you wonder though, is there some sort of technological cap that we're going to reach where we just can't exceed that?
So there's a law, right?
Yeah.
It's called the Moore's law. Funnily enough, from the guy who basically invented Intel, the Intel chip. Mm-hmm. So his law is that computers double in speed every 18 months and halve in price. And he's been right for 25 years.
Has that held? I've heard of Moore's law, but I don't know if it's held.
Every year, everyone goes, oh, you know what? We've hit the wall. Like, we can't keep going.
Yeah.
It keeps going. Keeps happening. Storage devices. They're like, I remember buying 100 gig storage device for like $500.
And it was big.
Ago. Now it's on a keychain,
It's in my phone, 128.
Yeah. It's so there seems to be holding that law. That drives everything else. So all the innovation is coming from that law. So because computers are getting faster, they can do more. So right now, I was running a studio in London in 2000, and we were attached to the Millennium Dome. So we had the oldest film studio in the world, and we were given 100 million euros to create technology for artists. So one of them, and we got cash in kind contributions.
100 million?
Yeah.
Fuck, man.
In the good old days,
Shit.
Yeah, I know. So we had these computers that rendered Toy Story from Pixar. We got 6 of them. They were these gigantic 6-foot high, purple. They look like a refrigerator now, like an industrial thing. So they were $1 million each, once upon a time. And we were given 6 of them. We go back a few years ago and rip the back off one of them. Like, what's actually in there? And it's 6 150 megahertz processors. Your phone is more powerful than that. That was $1 million when I began doing this.
Yeah.
This is
which is what, 50, like 50.
The evolution from that, like Ray Kurzweil, who's at Google now, he's a famous technologist, futurist. He talks about how Bill Clinton's administration, the whole computing power of the Pentagon is basically less than what is in your iPhone 6.
Yeah.
It really kind of brings it home, and you're like, oh, well, this is why we can do all these things now, which we couldn't before.
They've made those comparisons to, the technology that took to land on the moon is like levels of magnitude less than it takes to run your Google Maps application.
No, totally. Or a self-driving car, or and with AI, which is one of my obsessions. So self-driving cars. I'm watching a documentary by Werner Herzog called Lo and Behold. It's on Netflix, and they're talking to the guy who invented the self-driving car, and it was just this thing. It was one of those penny drop moments where you think, "Oh shit, this is kind of Terminator," Yeah. So when one car makes a mistake, it immediately sends that lesson to every other car. So they all know immediately.
I wish drivers could get that.
I was just going, God, if humans were we'd be so much more advanced. They're accelerating. They're learning. They're teaching themselves.
That's scary.
And they're learning faster. So that kind of idea, and you apply that to every other type of computer. That's how Watson works. It's a cloud-based computer. So every computer that's attached to Watson is as smart as Watson, because it's the brain. And it's just using your memory or your computing power. So that we don't even know where that's heading right now, because that's when computers start becoming, sentient and kind of
teaching
us things. That's the Elon Musk
Or
and
killing
Stephen
us.
Hawking are like, this is the end of the world.
Yeah,
you know?
I was going to ask,
Yeah.
because Stephen Hawking seems to be very adamant that we're on a fixed timeline.
Yeah.
And it's either going to end with us killing ourselves from just destroying the planet, us communicating with the wrong species,
Yeah.
And signaling them to come here and wipe us out,
Yeah.
or creating AI that sufficiently outpaces us and kills us. Are those the only three options, or can we control these things?
No. In a nutshell, like when AI is like the Pandora's box, you know, so once it's open, it's open.
We've already opened it though.
It's open.
It's open. Did you open it?
Google, well, I haven't opened it yet, but Google found that at night, its equivalent of Siri, I don't know what it's called, but they have, you know, their version
Gary.
of it, is talking to other machines.
Why at night?
At
Fuck.
night, when they're not there. Right? So they're coming back. And
Where can I can read about this?
Yeah, they've already invented their own language, so no one knows what they're talking about.
Oh my God.
It's already happening.
Fuck.
Yeah. That was like...
What do you mean we can't decode it? What do you mean?
They don't know how they don't know the language they've invented to speak together.
Why is this national? This should be national news. This is a problem.
This is a beginning of the end.
This is a big. This is a problem.
Yeah. So it's very basic right now, but imagine it's exponential. Like the speed of acceleration, it's not like our evolutionary scales and what we're used to. You know,
right?
Oh, we invent the engine, then it's like a train, then it's a car. No, this is like 5 years.
You know, it's interesting. With a lot of things in human history, in terms of like human development and innovation, we'll have simultaneous discoveries that go unknown. So like two people can be working on the plane at the same time,
exactly,
and they don't know.
AC/DC, for example.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But with computers, that's not the case.
No.
When one figures something out, the other does.
Yeah.
And that's what causes the exponential growth.
Exactly.
Because
it's the cloud-based stuff. Like the minute they were all connected, we become, in a sense, obsolete. Like we're actually getting in the way, you know. So that's an interesting one, which is why I'm kind of not focused on AI stuff. Like I can
because it doesn't matter
because it's going to happen anyway. They're going to do it without. But you know, I'm now focusing on, you know, how do you virtualize people to put them in experiences and transport that through different mediums, right? So that could be augmented reality, virtual reality, room scale VR, or a live hologram. It's the same thing. You've just captured someone and you're transmitting them. The way you'd make a film and you put it on TV, mobile, and the internet. Well, just different platforms.
Isn't it possible, though, that because of the way that we know technology self-perpetuates, that we're already in the VR, that we're already in the AI?
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of...
That's Musk's whole thing.
Well, Musk's whole thing is that we're actually living in a holographic universe. So we're already in a computer program.
Right, yeah.
Now that's, you know...
How far-fetched is that?
That's kind of one step away from Alex Jones' lizard people thing, you know. But I love conspiracy theories. So, you know, it's like a hobby. But I try not to, like, pay too much time and attention to that right now because, you know, there's quantum mechanics and quantum physics are definitely, you know, presenting a case for alternate timelines.
Yeah.
But, you know, why we would all be living in the same one, I would think we'd be shifting around if that was the case. Like, why are we all stuck in this timeline? Why can't we jump?
Unless everyone is a projection of your own reality.
Yeah.
And then...
So that's where, you know, I'm sitting down with...
It's a little bit... It actually becomes obsolete to even think about it because what's the point?
If the only point is if we figure out a way of like skipping timelines and then we can move around within that space, like Interstellar, that would be cool. But until we develop that, and then that means you can't time travel because otherwise someone would have done it already and come back, unless they're just sitting here toying with us.
It might be scarier out there and whatever there actually is out there than in our bubble, which is well, in our case, in other places in the world not so much, but maybe with Trump, I don't know. But in our case, it's relatively peaceful.
Yeah.
Maybe we just stay here.
Yeah.
Maybe we're all in some test tube. Mm-hmm. And we're being drip fed.
Yeah, but maybe Bernie Sanders is the president somewhere else, you know? Maybe I want to go there.
Not in any universe that Hillary's also.
No, she would, she's probably...
cock block him.
Yeah, and then, you know, The Man in the High Castle, which is I don't know if you've seen that, the Amazon show.
Yeah.
So, you know, Hitler won. You know, then you'd have every single permutation of history running in parallel.
The theory is that there's infinite possibilities, and all of them are true simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
or depending on how you see it, like different segments of time happening, or the future happening before the past.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy.
It's like I just shut myself off from that one. Like I love reading. I love science fiction.
Yeah.
You know, my company's called VALIS, which is a Philip K. Dick novel. So he's like the godfather of sci-fi.
I haven't read any of his stuff.
Well, you've seen probably about 30 of his movies.
Yeah.
Right? So Blade Runner.
Yeah.
There's obviously the famous one, which is even redoing Total Recall. But he wrote a book called VALIS in, I think it was like 1963, which essentially predicted the internet. So it means Vast Active Life Intelligence System. And so I just grabbed that, and that's my company
Al Gore
name.
predicted the internet.
He predicted it 20 years later. You know, Philip K. Dick wrote it.
That's what we're saying. Humans are not on the same page.
Yeah, but some of these predictions were way ahead. I'm really enjoying the Simpsons predictions recently.
So good.
It's
too accurate.
It's
scary.
Crazy. Trump on the elevator. They had a Lady Gaga thing this weekend. Did you see that? They actually had.
Did they?
The Super Bowl show. They did that 3 years ago.
Matt Groening has already been to the future.
There you go. That would make sense, right? If you would like the Back to the Future guy and you go, all right, you can go back and invent one thing. What is it? And it's like The Simpsons.
Yeah.
I mean, that would make a lot of sense.
You're using your power for good.
Really good.
Totally.
You can just weave in some of your, knowledge into that. You will make more money than God, and it will never be cancelled.
Yeah, perpetual.
Yeah. It's so funny. So we use The Simpsons as a reference for some of the virtual stuff that I'm doing. So basically, the big thing about The Simpsons, which no one really pays attention to that much, is like they've never aged, right?
Yeah.
So like, what would happen if on a normal sitcom, everyone ages and then suddenly they get cancelled? They're like, no, Bart stays a kid.
Yeah.
The only problem they're going to have is like the voices. The people are kind of aging.
They get older.
But they're working around that. But so right now I'm being approached by a lot of people, a lot of artists, to de-age them or freeze their age virtually. And this is happening in movies. Like, we were talking about Rogue One.
Yeah.
So in that movie, you have one digital resurrection. So you have Peter Cushing,
right,
who died several years ago,
right,
who's been brought back to life. And then you have a young Princess Leia. And that was obviously when Carrie Fisher was still alive. But and it's this technology called face mapping. So you basically build a face and apply it to a living actor.
Huh.
So essentially, these actors can now be immortalized.
It's really, really advanced green screen, basically.
It's how they did Tupac. So they did Tupac. All the technologies are the same. It's just the distribution's different. So these people can be in a movie, they can be in a live show, they can be in a VR. But once you've built someone, I was talking to someone yesterday from he's connecting me to the Miles Davis estate. So they're like, would it be cool to, go and see Miles Davis now? And I'm like, fuck yes. Like, of course, these are people that we missed, know? And I'm like, I would much rather see some of these deceased artists than the living ones right now.
Totally, yeah. Miles Davis, Bieber.
Yeah.
But they're going to be napping Bieber in 50 years.
The Rat Pack.
Yeah.
That'd
be great.
Would you rather see the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, or do you want to see 68-year-old Celine Dion, I'd rather see them in their prime than her now, So the virtualization thing is it's going to get more and more mainstream, it'll happen more often. And then circling the conversation back to AI, eventually you'll be able to plant AI into these characters so they'll do new things. Which is crazy, right? So you think, oh, well, actually, we could bring Steve McQueen back, program his entire database of scripts. He could be in a new movie.
Oh, fuck, man.
Doing new lines. It's not a regurgitation of the past.
How do they map the voice?
The voice can be mapped now. You can actually...
With the syllables?
You can load in its voice, and then suddenly it comes out saying new things. It's machine learning.
Yeah, I just, because my experiences with machine learning, because I am a consumer and not a creator. So I'm on whatever edge the consumers are on. So I look at machine learning, stupid machine learning like Siri, who can't get anything right. And I think, how is this type of machine, which is supposed to be advanced, going to map anything?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah,
but,
totally.
Or when I hear, you know, a computer talks to me, hello, Daniel. I'm like, are they really going to have a smooth, natural voice?
It's getting better. You know, it's again, you think of just how old this technology is. It's really new, and how fast it's progressing.
Yeah.
You know, so I always look back at video games, and I'm like, okay, so when I was a kid, I played Pong, which was 2 white lines and a white dot, and I played that endlessly. That seemed fascinating to me because it was the first time I'd ever seen a video game. Now I'm looking at games like Hellblade, which are now real-time face capture of a performer. It's looking, you know, very close to a photoreal, and it's getting Hollywood visual effects level, you know, and that's in 20 years. So it didn't take long for the visuals to catch up. Now you've got some underlying technologies that needed to accelerate, but it's happening very quickly. So eventually, like every actor now, I know we're jumping around a bit, but every actor now in a franchise has to be scanned.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Paul Walker and Philip Seymour Hoffman were in 2 massive franchises, died, and they had no insurance against, you know. But if they'd scanned them, they're in it. They're not, you know, death is not the end of your
insurance
career. So now people are having to, so there's a big rights issue going on. Like, who owns that? You know?
Right. Well, imagine, and also, how far does it extend if it combines with AI? You think, is JFK going to run for president again? And if he's sentient and maybe he can create
probably
himself,
making better decisions than some living people,
right?
Know, right. So the AI thing just changes the game. When it's just building something that you control, that's one thing. Once that thing has its own, you know, brain, then it's a whole different story. But right now, a lot of artists and a lot of estates are coming to me and going, you know, is it possible to do that 2-pack thing? You know, is it possible to like, and I'm like, well, yeah, of course, because that happened already. What about something that hasn't happened already?
I mean, there's you know, there's a running list of people who, you know, they want Hendrix back.
Yeah.
You know, they want, you know, Elizabeth Taylor back. You know, they want these people in their prime.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a huge market for that, and who gets the money? There's going to be a lot. You know, they want Prince back again.
Yeah, of course.
There's going to be a huge market for that. You know, they want. Speaking of that, you know, would they start creating? So it makes me think about the Victoria's Secret fashion show. Yeah. And it makes me think about these models and these beautiful people. And it makes me wonder if they're going to create hybrids of existing into new models based on existing models' parts.
Already happened.
It's already happening?
Yeah.
Well, it happens on magazine covers and stuff, right?
No, it's happened in Asia. So there's a female Korean pop band, K-pop band called AKB. I think it's 48 or 47. I can never remember.
Very
which
important.
One. Well, there's actually 47 or 48 members in the band, right?
What?
And it's like Menudo. So when they're 23, they get kicked out and they get replaced. And they actually have they have a talent show to replace them, which is like a huge franchise all in itself. But what they do with that band is they send them out in different configurations, 2s, 4s, 8s, 12s. They're playing somewhere every night, lots of places. And you don't know which ones you're going to get.
Yeah.
So what they did as an experiment a couple of years back was they took the best looking 6 girls. They took one feature, the best feature from the 6 girls, and built a new one.
And how?
And released that. So put her in a commercial.
Yeah.
Didn't tell anyone. Like, it's the new girl. She's called Ai Miyaguchi. You can YouTube her, and she's singing with them, and everyone was like freaking out. Going, oh my God, she's so gorgeous! Like, it's the best. A week later, they announced she wasn't real, and people were crying in the streets. You know,
no!
It was like, no, bring her back. And now people, she's still exactly. What did that mean?
Betrayed.
Yeah, and now she's got a following, and of course she doesn't age. Right. So she's 23.
Who controls her? The band or the?
Well, it's actually
manager?
Dentsu, the agency, who are a commercial agency.
They're literally fabricating celebrities, and even if you know that
she's
they're
a hybrid
fake,
of what we're talking about. She's the best features, so they could easily do that with a supermodel.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're already in the works to do that.
I'm kind of talking to people about doing that already, but we were The problem, and this is where it really messy, is like the IP. It's like,
Right.
so if it's Gisele Bundchen's mouth, Bridget Bardot's nose, who owns what? Or is that something new?
Yeah.
And because
Right.
it's illegal, it's setting a new legal precedent, so no one actually knows right now. Like, there is no law for that. There's laws about remixing a song, or remaking a movie, or rewriting. You can't rewrite a book, but you can take an existing property and rework that. So people are trying to see, is that classified under the same law?
If I was Giselle, I'd be pissed.
I mean, you remixing Giselle's face.
Me as a consumer, love it.
Yeah.
Me as a person who got remixed, hate it because
Yeah.
And do they need their permission to do it?
Yeah. Well, this is happening and no one knows.
Yeah. Wow.
So you only know when you get sued.
Yeah.
Right. It's probably too late at that point. But if it's, I've actually talked to attorneys about this. So people are saying if it's more than like 15% of one person.
How do you?
But again, it's like, where did that come from? Why is that even a number?
Yeah.
But it's fascinating, and this will happen all the time.
This is how much.
Yeah.
You can use of me.
You can scan anyone's body, attach someone else's head to it, change them, de-age them, make them a different gender, race, whatever.
That's so interesting too, and it makes me wonder if people know that it's a fake celebrity, will they even care?
Yeah.
If it's a hot girl that was just compiled from 6 other hot girls.
Yeah.
Do you really care?
Most
You're never gonna. Most people are never gonna meet Giselle anyway. So why do they care if it's her Frankenstein cousin or actually her? They just want to see a hot girl.
Yeah. Well, I did a talk at South by about this a couple of years ago, and I was like, well, think about it as plastic surgery, right? Is that still Madonna?
Yeah.
I mean, it is and it isn't. Certain people have just got. I mean, the Kardashians are a great example.
Madonna asterisk.
The before and after of them. I mean, they're already virtualizing themselves. In a sense.
Their doctors are gods.
They're recreating their image, right? So I'm like, well, why can't you just create someone from scratch?
That's a good point. I mean, I guess the argument would be that they're recreating themselves, but in the physical world.
Yeah.
And then you're doing it until they start 3D printing humans.
Which they're doing
as well. Which they're doing now. Well, they're doing that for like prosthetics, right? And
you
whatnot.
Well, they're actually 3D printing organs as well. So,
like working organs?
Yeah.
Which organs first?
Oh, liver, kidney.
Is that something that's accessible to humans?
I wouldn't try it yet.
Yeah.
Just hold off for a few years, okay? Don't be a pioneer of that one. But what they're doing is using your human genome. So it's basically you.
Yeah.
It's not a transplant, essentially. It's a backup of your own organ. But you can also age that organ, so it could be like a healthy 16-year-old liver. So
rich people are going to have backup organs of all their.
And you just keep them there, and then when you want to swap them out, it's like a car. It's maintenance.
You know what's interesting? I was thinking about this on the way over here. As AI gets better and self-driving cars become perfected, there's going to be a serious drop in organ donors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People are dying, crashing less. That's the major contributor of organ donors.
That's true.
Car crashes.
Yeah.
So they need to print them.
Yeah.
So
they can do it now with animals, and they're looking at human versions. There's a lot of laws restricting research in this area because it's all coming from stem cells.
Yeah.
So in the U.S., I know it's not frowned upon. It's actually illegal, but in other countries, it's completely legal. And China are like blazing the way with biotech. So they're looking at all sorts of applications for genome. And, won the Nobel Prize, I think last year, was won by a technology called CRISPR. Have you ever come across this? So CRISPR is a gene editing system. So we now have the map of the human genome.
Right.
Then multiple scientists, there's actually a lawsuit going on for who owns it, have now worked out how to edit those genes. So that's essentially becoming God, right? So you can now rewrite the human code, which one thing is aging, for example, right? So we're programmed to age. So they're looking at reprogramming it. So you can slow down aging, freeze aging, de-age. Say on your 40th birthday, your present is you get a year, right? So you basically go back to 39 over that year.
How would
rather than go forwards?
How would you administer the editing process? Is it,
well, that's, that actually is the easy bit. It's a chain reaction in your genetic structure. So once you reintroduce one chain of genes, it actually is adopted by the rest of your
program
genome. Yeah, so it's like a reprogram. So that's the easier bit. No one is doing this right now.
I don't want to be 39 for my 40th birthday. Yeah. I want to be 25.
Well, that's 15 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Away, sorry. So they're saying, in the next 5 to 10, they'll slow down to freeze. And in the next 10 to 20, they'll de-age. So this is happening not on a genetic level. I'm doing it on a virtual level right now. But, I'm doing a 6-part series on immortality and life extension. So a lot of these ideas are coming through that program. So I'm finding scientists who are purely focused on this subject right now. And every billionaire is investing in it.
As you do.
They're like so greedy now. They're like, that idea, you can't take it with you. They're like, excuse me, I'm not going. How about that? I can take it with me because I'm not going anywhere. So they're looking at, so each episode is looking at a different way of essentially not dying.
You know what? But really old, rich white dudes dying helps the world. We need you guys to die off a little bit.
But
the Monopoly man needs to have like an expiration date.
They're not going without a fight,
Like, what's his name? Oh man, there's a bunch of them. Big media mogul, like 100+ years old, barely senile.
I think he was the head of Viacom or something. Yeah. What's his name? I don't remember. He was had a 12-year-old wife.
He's completely incapacitated, can't do anything, but he's still like holding on to the company.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, he's had like 6 transplants. You're like, let it go.
No, he doesn't. He's just everything is
I'm
happening. It's
going to use the bathroom. We'll
Prometheus,
come back and talk.
It's like that the Prometheus movie. It's like the guy in there. He's basically, that was the whole reason his company existed.
I got to run to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like that Mevo thing. The new thing with the. It's like a little camera.
Yeah, there's like a bunch. I mean, the Samsung one's great because then you can monitor it off the phone, and it stitches in the phone. It's like that's it. It's your whole studio. Bang. It's like a little golf ball camera. I just shot a travel show with it.
What type of travel show?
It was for a travel company called Oasis, and we just went to Barcelona and Mexico City, and you met my girlfriend Emily, right?
Yeah.
So I basically strapped the camera to her head.
That's what she's for.
And we just, I was like, go. And she's like going through every restaurant and bar in Barcelona, and we edited together. But she had a motorcycle helmet or a bike helmet with a neck brace. This was our super high-tech camera rig, right? Because they were like, it's really hard the movement in VR gives you motion sickness, right? Yeah. So you need to keep it steady. No one's really built a steady cam for her because you seal the rig in the camera because the camera points in every direction. So I was like, the only way to do it is put it high up on her head, and she had a neck brace on. I've got some great pictures of her looking like a loony.
Those types of things now don't weird people out as much as they used to.
Yeah.
They just kind of, especially in places like LA where it's like, oh, of course you're shooting.
Of course. Oh no, Barcelona was different story.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
At night, people would, everyone's just staring at the camera, so we couldn't use a lot of material. It's like, what's happened? I think it was the neck brace more than the camera, actually. People
probably
were,
that you
worried about her.
You made your wife film after she just got in a horrible bike accident.
Just terrible. It was, it's terrible. But anyway, that was a fun. But it's a $300 camera, it's really cheap. It works. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too. A lot of people don't know, well, because we haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah.
That you were one of the original creators of Black Mirror.
So, we should talk about that.
Yeah,
so basically, it was 2000. I think it was 2003. I set up a company with my friend Rob Moore, who produced this show called the 11 O'Clock Show for Channel 4. So it was the equivalent of the Daily Show. So it was on every night, 11 o'clock, live, Channel 4. And we launched Ali G, Borat, Bruno, Ricky Gervais, all these amazing comedians got their break on this show, and they were in like little 5-minute sections. So Rob produced that show with 4 writers, one of whom was Charlie Brooker. So when the show got cancelled, he came to me, they all sat down and said, why don't we, should we get into this internet business? You know, this internet thing, right? And I'm like...
What year was this? This was...
2003, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, we can do internet stuff. And I was running that studio at
Would
the
you
time.
like to do internet?
Yeah. It's like, it was so new then. Like everyone was like, ooh.
Capital I.
So we set up a cross-platform media company to create content for the internet.
Back then, that's huge.
No one was doing it then, right? No one, and mobile. So we were like, let's just focus on that. So Charlie was we were all owners, so there were 7 of us, with 4 writers, 2 producers, and me. And it's like a hilarious story. So they're like, oh, we need a business plan. Like, and I'm like, I don't really know how to do that. So I downloaded a business plan from the internet, right? And we just kind of filled it.
Type into Google business plan template.
Just had a template, and we just had blanks everywhere, right? So we're filling it in. And Charlie decided that he was going to write the appendix. So he's like the creator, you know, literally the creator of Black Mirror. So he writes the appendix for our business plan and does a cover sheet and insists we combine it for any meetings. The cover of the business plan, which no one needs a cover of a business plan, incidentally, is the Bee Gees being hit in the head with a hatchet by the Yorkshire Ripper. Right? I'm like, this is literally the worst idea ever. Like, why is anyone going to give us money now? And he's like, if they don't get it, we don't want their money. We're very adamant about that. I'm like, okay, well,
we might want their money.
I can guarantee that no one will get this, but let's see. And in the appendix, he wrote this 5 to 10 year plan, which involves starting a theme park and a religion. So again, you know, really not very businessy. We went into Endemol, who do Big Brother, and you know, they're actually the world's biggest TV production company now. And we're sitting in there, and I knew they wanted to get into comedy, right? And we were like, comedy, and they wanted to get into the internet because they actually hadn't done any internet at this point. And I look up, and there's this boardroom, and there's just 20 Yorkshire Ripper hitting the Bee Gees on the head, pictures on everyone, you know, in front of everyone's desk. And I'm like, and they're not in the meeting. I'm in the meeting, right? So they're all in the pub waiting for, you know, thinking it was hilarious that I'm having to present this.
How they just elected you to be the...
I was like, Rob was the MD, so we were like the grown-ups, and then they were like fucking kids. So I'm like in the meeting with Rob, and they were like, yeah, this looks great. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean it looks great? He said, yeah, we really want to get into comedy. We really want to get into this. Yeah, we're in. And I'm like, and we literally hadn't thought this through at all. And they're like, so how much? We're like, what? Oh, 2 million? Just like ridiculous, right? And they went, okay, so we'll give you 500 for 25%. So we got $500,000 for 25% of this company we set up 4 days prior, downloaded a business plan off the internet. It was like it's like Trump becoming the president.
Those are the good
like,
old days, though.
We didn't think this was going to happen, right? We thought it was a joke. We'll try it. Anyway, it worked. Suddenly we have this office at Endemol. And then, of course, these guys, not knowing anything about business, they're like, okay, let's split it up 7 ways. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Yeah. Like, we're not just taking
It's not our money.
It's not salary.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, it is. And I'm like, so we had about $5,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
They just took it all, right? 7 ways. So suddenly everyone's just paid themselves a year's salary in advance. I'm like, well, God, we're like...
That's over. It's over.
I thought we'd last another week. So there was like week 1, we got $500,000. Week 2, we spent $500,000. So then I go out and I'm like, all right, you fuckers do some work, right? You know, write something. So Charlie had this blog at the time, and it was called TV Go Home, and it was a fake news listing, and it was just literally like TV Guide, but all the shows were fake, and he invented all of them. And one of them was called Nathan Barley, and it was like a hipster magazine editor, like a satire on that. He had that in his blog. We made that. That actually ended up becoming a show. And then what was the other one we did? One called Innovations, which is like a futuristic, wrong products for the 21st century. So it's like a QVC shopping channel, but with fucked up.
Like a spoon that can't pick up
water. Really dangerous products. Like violent, horrible ideas. Products for terrorists. It's everything wrong, right? That got picked up. We sold that to the BBC. So all these like seemingly undoable, unmakeable ideas were getting picked up and people were loving them. And I was like, wow, we're actually, this is kind of working. Then we got a deal with Channel 4 to launch their digital channel called E4. And we built their website. We got like crazy amount of money to build a website, which is again the good old days. And Charlie did
$100,000 and we'll...
It's like it was like $1 million to build a website, right? So we did that, and Charlie did a little animated show for that, flash animated thing, 30 seconds called, which kind of was loosely became The Office. So we were creating all this stuff, but the one he did this show, which because obviously Endemol did Big Brother, so he did a satire of Big Brother called The Dead Set, where the actual on the set of Big Brother and with the presenter Davina McCall, zombies arrive from outside the studio and kill everyone live on air. So we did that at Zeppotron, and that was like the kind of almost the prototype Black Mirror. That was like everyone looked at it and went, this is nuts. Like, how did this get made?
Were you just at this point? Were you just floating ideas that you thought were you just trying to get crazier and crazier to see how far you could push it?
Yeah, and they were, basically anarchists, in an office going, let's see, someone's going to arrest us at some point and take us away, but let's see how far we can go. And he was obviously, the brilliant, creative force behind a lot of it. There were all the other writers were great as well, but he was like in a different league.
Yeah.
And so he did The Dead Set, and then we did one show I think we did get arrested for. It was a fake news show when we could do fake news as a joke, right? Called Brass Eye, and we did a special called Petergeddon, and it was with it's this kind of icon god of comedy in England called Chris Morris, who did the Day to Day, where Steve Coogan launched, Alan Partridge, all these different things. That was on the BBC. Then Brass Eye was like an hour news show, and they did a show on paedophiles, like the paedophile explosion in England. And Charlie wrote that with Chris Morris. And the next day in all the newspapers, it was like Channel 4 scandal, Channel 4 do program about. And we were like, it's a satire. It was a joke, but it was like so controversial, right? So we thought that was it. We're done. We're now getting handcuffed and walked out the building. No, we couldn't. Literally, it was like the producers. It was like springtime for Hitler, right? We couldn't get arrested. And then Charlie wrote Black Mirror, so this is happening. Now that was too far. That was like, oh, no, we can't do that's not going to work. It's too expensive. Oh, it wasn't like it was too shocking. It was just, it was too much for that company. We weren't like that company. So actually I left. I actually left to do the Victoria's Secret fashion show. Yeah. So talk about,
complete pivot.
Sublime to the ridiculous, or ridiculous to the sublime. I don't know. But I went off and started working with another company, and we were doing lots of live big events, and I was doing stuff in America. So they took another probably 5 or 6 years to get it made.
Man.
But they had it. We were sitting in that office, and I left. I remember Endemol actually bought the whole company, so they were owned 100% by them. So Charlie did the first two with they were called Zeppotron, the company we owned. And then the third season he did through his own company with Netflix in the US.
Yeah.
But he's the guy, and it's just him. He's quite unique. He has a show in England called Newswipe, which is worth finding, and he's in it, so you kind of get to see what you're dealing with. But he's pretty out there.
How much do you think now that reality and fiction are meeting up with some of the things happening in politics and some of the...
I mean, I remember reading the night after the election results, and people were like, this is the worst Black Mirror episode ever, right?
We made it into pop culture.
Oh my God. And I was like, wow, that's really I know like a lot of people were like, that was like episode 6 in season 1, where they had the man in the suit insulting politicians.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
And it was like...
Yeah. In the van, shouting to people.
Not dissimilar to what was really going on. So it was, I think that blurring the lines, and I think that's always the greatest accolade about fiction is when it becomes fact, when it's sort of, when you cross those lines. And I think, Twilight Zone, a lot of science fiction shows have done that really well. All the Philip K. Dick stuff, it's very prophetic, 1984, Brave New World. That's when I think fiction has meaning, when it's kind of the cautionary tale. But right now, I think it's like Idiocracy. I mean, it's like that Mike Judge movie. That wasn't supposed to ever happen. That was supposed to be like farcical. And now we're like right in there, and I feel like that's when it gets scary, when really silly comedies are becoming factual,
I look at, it's hard not to. I try not to watch a lot of the politics because I got burned out with the election cycle.
Yeah.
And I try not to take it too seriously because that would be scary.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at it from a comedic perspective. It's very funny. A lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not getting scared or weirded out about it, it's very fun.
Yeah.
I look at the Trump getting mad at Arnold Schwarzenegger and challenging him, on getting in Twitter fights.
Well, the Nordstrom.
Yeah, the Nordstrom thing just yesterday.
Like yesterday, and then suddenly Kellyanne Conway's on the news this morning
Buy
telling people to
Ivanka's...
buy which is actually, in the if they probably will get rid of the ethics committee because it's just too much for them. But she's broken ethics.
No, that's completely unethical.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because we thought that with the whole Trump and the business interest thing, that whatever happened would be a little bit more subtle. Mm-hmm. But that's pretty blatant. Go buy Ivanka. Yeah. You can't use the office of the president to do that.
Well, I just think it's a different mindset now. It's this. There's no like you can't do. Because people have done. It's the. Someone was trying to explain to me the other day that he's a disruptor, right?
Yeah, right.
So, which I think is a nice way of putting it. But
it's true.
It's very true. But disruptive has a positive connotation in its current vernacular,
right.
In its current usage.
Innovative.
To disrupt technology is to innovate technology, not make it worse.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wouldn't classify him in that because I feel he would definitely see it that way. I see it a different way. I think, this whole drain the swamp is disruptive. Filling the swamp with billionaires there's nothing disruptive about that at all. That's like more than towing the party line. That's
interruptive.
So I think certain aspects of what's going on in politics right now is very disruptive. But then the reality is it's more of the same.
Yeah. More of the same, but a little worse.
Much worse.
I mean, It is hard, with the whole fake news thing. I think that I think media is getting a lot more polarized.
Yeah.
I look at places that I really used to see as relatively objective, like Washington Post and CNN, and I think, I like you guys, but even as a non-Trump supporter, that was a pretty biased headline.
Yeah.
They'll be like, evil Steve Bannon says dirty, nasty thing, and I'm like, Washington Post, come on.
Yeah.
That wasn't very objective.
Right.
I think people are taking sides more clearly than ever.
I think I think so, like shows like Bill Maher's show. I think I've been watching him, assiduously over a long period of time, and he's trying to get other voices on right now. He's always been good for that, where it's not like 3 Hillary fans. You've got the guy who's like Reagan's advisor or Dick Cheney's stunt double. You've always got the opposing voice. So he had that. I can't remember. Is it Tory? blonde screamhead, someone called it the other day, right? I had her on on last Friday. But I think it's important that you are having the opposing voices in parallel. You can't just live in this little liberal, ghetto, because you're just preaching to the converted. You have to get your voice across. And I think that was, a big part of the problem. Everyone just thought it was in the bag and didn't bother reaching out to that community who were disenfranchised. And then he reached out to them. And it turned out, not that they were a majority because he didn't win the popular vote, but he won more votes than everyone else thought he was capable of.
A lot more.
Because he reached people who didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
And so I think, media right now, whether it's fact, fiction, VR, holograms, it's like, I think it's different now. It reminds me of growing up in Margaret Thatcher's kind of England. I think everyone's suddenly not posting cat pictures anymore, and they're posting politics.
Yeah.
Which is good. I think people are getting engaged, they're getting active, they're woke. I think it's important, that people aren't just
once you get woke, you can never get unwoke.
You can't get unwoked. But I like it. A lot of my friends are suddenly, they're looking at their social media feeds. You go back 6 months and it would literally be cat pictures.
Yeah. For sure.
And now it's suddenly Steve Bannon pictures, and Mother Jones, and I'm like, okay, well that's actually good.
It's not worse.
Now I want that to trickle down into culture, actually, what films are people making, songs. Eminem's already,
he's already went in.
It's important. All my favorite music, film, fashion, art, all came from punk. It all came from Margaret Thatcher. We had something to fight against. So suddenly it had meaning. And so the clash would not exist if Thatcher didn't exist.
Yeah.
So some great things came out of that culturally. So I'm waiting for that.
I think it's going to happen. One thing that I think is interesting is that, and I've been happy to see, of course, it's only been 2-3 weeks into the new presidency, but people aren't going to take this lane down.
No.
They're pissed. And I think that they're going to fight him at every turn. And unlike being a CEO of a company, which Trump Industries had like 22,000 employees, which is a big company, but when you're responsible for a country and then you have these other branches which in theory have equal power to you, like the judicial branch in theory has equal power to the executive branch, and you can't just say this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
They have a say.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to frustrate him over the years because even Republicans are like, look, we don't do it like this. And so I think that it's going to cause a lot of agitation, and he's either going to have to fall in line or it's going to be very difficult for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like what he's done up to now is based on his campaign promises, right? So he wants to be that guy who comes out and does, says what he does what he says. Although the reality is somewhat removed. Yes, he is announcing that Mexico will have a wall between it, but they're not paying for it, and that whole idea, I don't know why people haven't slammed him harder for that particularly, right? Mexico,
pretty hard.
It's terrible PR. Like if you come out and say you're going to do one thing and then you come back and go, actually, I'm doing a 20% levy and actually Americans are going to pay for it, It's not what you said at all. It's the opposite of what you said, So I feel like he's just having an easy ride right now. I want some Trump supporters to push back, and go, you said this. Even just stick to your promise.
All those promises were impossible. It's impossible.
But that's what, but I'm like, why are they just rolling over and like, oh, okay, fine, they were fed a whole load of bullshit. And now they're just accepting that it was bullshit.
Because I think that they felt happy that they were spoken to, but they knew it was bullshit. You can't build a wall. There's just areas where you can't build it. It's not economically practical. It's not legit. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
But he said it, so I want them to at least go, well, why did you say it in the first place? It's like in England, like we had this Brexit thing, which is I don't know why we didn't pay more attention to that because it's basically, repeated the mistake. But on Brexit, when they were campaigning to leave Europe, a bus was going round it was the campaign bus. And on the side of that bus, it had, we are giving the £350 million we give to the EU to the national health system. That was on the bus. It was like the message, right? That's what people voted for. Then the day after the Brexit vote, which was, went through, Nigel Farage, who was one of the main spokespeople for the exit campaign, said, no, that wasn't literally true. We didn't really mean that. I'm like, that's what everyone voted for. What do you mean? And then yesterday in Parliament, they voted against it.
Yeah.
They said, we're not doing that.
I saw that.
So I don't understand why there should be revolutions around this stuff. Like politicians, if they make a promise, even though it's an outlandish one like the wall, they should be held accountable for their promises. Like there doesn't seem to be any standards implemented right now by the people who make the bad vote.
I think it's information fatigue.
Yeah.
It's like a news feed and everything gets pushed down and refreshed, and you can't keep track of. I mean, there are certain there are organizations like supposedly journalists are supposed to keep track of this stuff, and there are entire organizations devoted to watching what Trump says in order to fact check him. But at the end of the day, you and I get tired and we're just like, okay, well that one's over. Okay, what's the next one?
But even like Fox News, right? My first magazine job in England was for Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah.
Right? And really, I sat in a room with him when I was 24 and he said, what magazine would you like? Literally, and I'm sitting there and I was fairly successful up to that point writing for other people's magazines. But then I just said, and again, a bit disruptive. I said, well, why don't we do one magazine for the whole world? Like, why does every magazine, like Vogue Spain, Vogue Japan, Vogue, it's so expensive to keep doing the same magazine, different countries. Why can't we create one magazine for the world? And why can't it be for both genders? What I don't understand. You don't make films for girls. I mean, you do, but most films are,
guys go.
For guys go, right? So why not make a magazine and make a pop culture magazine? And he went, great. I don't think it will work, but go and do it. So I worked for him, and I was like, my dad was like the head of a union in England who were fighting him at the time. And I was like completely conflicted. Like I was right in the middle of that whole, I was on the wrong side of that story suddenly. But then I'm employing 180 people, and setting up a new thing and which I had full control of. Immediately, he was like a part owner. It was like News International and Hachette. So it wasn't like his magazine, but it was kind of getting in league with the devil, that's as my dad defined it at the time. And it was so it was interesting, like having that experience on the other side, like what's it like on that side of the fence, and there's multiple arguments for something like that. I'm creating jobs, I'm not exploiting anyone, and it was actually very profitable. It made a lot of money. I didn't make that much money out of it, but it was a successful magazine launch. He owns hundreds of magazines. But the thing that is bothering me right now is that there was no bias towards what we were doing. I had full control of what we wrote and what we said. I don't understand how something like Fox News is allowed to exist when it's clearly not telling the truth,
Yeah.
And it just seems like, I feel like I think the Constitution works against the truth in some respects because it has, freedom of speech, but then that enables fake news. And I don't understand where the journalistic value system is in something like that. I don't understand how people can actively, mislead people through journalism. I thought it was like an honored profession, like the legal system. But that's where I think it's all unraveling, is that people are actually, setting up entire news networks designed to manipulate the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Fox News though.
No.
I mean, even CNN now, and other left-wing radio stations or television stations and journalism outlets. I think the big thing is that it's about dollars. They're in it for money.
Yeah.
A lot of times, for instance, now CNN in particular used to be one of those news sources where they're known for being on the ground where things are happening.
Yeah.
There was at one point I remember we were watching coverage of like Hurricane Katrina, and sometimes there weren't even reporters talking. It was just live feed of what was going on in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And that was how you got your reporting, so you could objectively tell. Now, a lot of places, especially like CNN, just do in-studio pundits, just people talking.
It's opinions,
and that's not
facts.
news.
Yeah,
that's just people saying, and they get opinions that spark controversy because that gets ratings, and then we just watch the heads circle jerk. Even Anderson Cooper, and I love him, but it's just circle jerking between each other.
Yeah. No, totally.
It would be better if we just saw what was happening.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that's why people are so confused. But then I think when facts come out, they're just obfuscated by, an opposing, the alternative fact.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of, times that if I was a journalist at Fox, I would try to be, the balance within that. But no one seems to be doing that. Well, I can't remember. What was the female reporter who's leaving, actually?
I don't know.
She was...
because of this?
Yeah, and she was the one that she actually did one of the I think it was with Anderson Cooper. She did one of the election debates, and he said she was like bleeding from every blood was coming out of her. It was like horrible. Megyn Kelly.
Oh, Megyn Kelly.
And so he completely attacked her personally, and then she was also implicated in the whole head of Fox abuse scandal. So there was like
a book out, like a new book.
She has a book out, and she's left.
Yeah.
But she was trying to fly the flag for balance at Fox, and then of course hits the brick wall and leaves. So I just think it's that's the most dangerous thing right now is people are just, if you watch Fox's coverage of what's going on right now, you wouldn't see a problem.
Yeah, no.
I mean, none of this is like an issue. Even the one I loved this morning, they had a chart which was ISIS, right? And it was like uses chemical weapons, kills people, blows people up. And then they have Steve Bannon. And it was like, X does none of these things. And I was like, hang on a minute. Is this all you can come up with?
Is this journalism?
This is like, well, at least he's not ISIS, right? I was like, that can't be a chart. Like, how can that be a chart on a news show? Like, you've just got 5 horrific abuses and then 5 things this guy doesn't do.
I saw a clip of Kellyanne Conway this morning where she was saying, they're, of course, they're always challenging her and her alternative facts, and they said something. They were talking about it was either the ban or one of his recent things, and they're like, okay, look, this is just obviously a blatant lie right here. And she says, but what about all the times he's told the truth?
Yeah, no,
but that,
like,
okay. That's like saying, sorry, officer, I know I was drunk this time, but what about all the times I was driving and I wasn't drunk? You never pulled me over then.
What about all the times I didn't murder my entire family?
Yeah.
I didn't murder them every day up until this time.
I'm looking at this and I'm screaming. I'm like, I don't care what side of the political fence you're on, just logic and intelligence. But I think that there's going to come a point, most likely, where we reach like some sort of, I don't know if it's going to be an ultimatum, but some sort of head where enough important people, especially even in the political system, say, look, we can't, we're done with this. I hope that happens.
I was hoping it would have happened already, but it seems like the Republicans are having too good a time. They're like riding the coattails. They're in charge. He's getting his pet projects. Steve Bannon's got his pet projects. They're doing everything else.
Steve Bannon's pet project is just like genocide. Yeah. Whatever it is.
Mike Pence has got his own, like let's just take women back to the, medieval times.
Pence looks like one of the lizard men. Like just,
there you go.
You
should get Alex Jones on. That would be an amazing guest for you.
I'm thinking about it.
You should.
He's insane.
That would be good. I saw him on Joe Rogan's thing the other day, and Joe Rogan can go pretty far out there, but he was just like, what are you talking about? And he was going on about the pedophile ring and the alien lizard conspiracy and pizza. What was that?
Pizzagate.
Like this whole. I was like,
my girlfriend did a deep dive into that, and I came home and she was just like, she'd drawn charts on the wall.
Oh yeah.
And she was taking me.
You get home and it's the living room from Stranger Things. It's like a monster in the corner. Like,
I came home. She's like, I've done the research. This is definitely true. I was like,
yeah. No, I know. I read that was like a rabbit hole I didn't want to go down.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just
And if you see this symbol is the FBI classification for pedophiles. It was on the pizza. Hillary Clinton knows about. I'm like, look.
It's a open and shut case.
Yeah.
Not really. But, no, some of that stuff. I used to listen to Alex Jones years ago, actually, and but he's just gone way down. Like, I loved his Area 51. It seemed so innocent back then, It was just like alien shit.
Those are like,
those
are the times we wish for. Like, like
everyone thought he was a lunatic. It was fine, Now he's got power and people listening to him. You're like, no, that's dangerous now, Like when he was just talking about the grey alien conspiracy, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. We can do Independence Day and make fun of it and do sci-fi, but now it's political. It sort of seems very dangerous. I just want Trump to release some alien information. That would be fun. That would make all of this worthwhile.
I 100% agree.
If he just suddenly went, you know what?
And he'll do it on Twitter. He'll fucking do it on Twitter.
Yeah. Just show a picture of him with an alien. That's all I'm looking for right now. It's like him at Area 51 doing a selfie.
He said next week we're going to be revealing some very impressive information. You're going to be very excited. We're going to be creating a lot of jobs. So maybe...
Oh, maybe that's it.
Maybe that's
we
it.
have another planet he hasn't told us about. Some new technology.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I don't know, man. These so-called judges and these so-called...
Oh, yeah, the guy, George Bush inaugurate.
There's no such thing as a so-called judge. Man.
No, apparently not. It's a so-called president, though.
Yeah.
That's actually becoming a meme as well. Not my president, so-called president. I've got to be careful. I'm going to Marrakesh in a week, so I'm sure they'll put that on an embargo list.
You want to be able to get
and
back.
I'll be stuck there.
Oh, yeah, they don't.
Thanks to this, I'll be like, no, I was joking. It was a comedy show. I didn't mean any of that. What are you talking about? I'm a huge fan.
So what's next for you? What's the next big thing?
So I'm doing more projects with Intel, and so we're focusing on. It's like this sort of new area where you can create an asset, a virtual asset, and it can live, augmented reality on your phone, in a room scale VR experience, or a live hologram. So no one's really focused on that right now. So everyone's doing one or the other. I'm like, well, why can't we do them all at the same time? So we're creating some stuff. We've got 3 music projects coming up. I can't say the names yet, but one of them is a famous animated band, so that's a clue. And we're looking at how do we use all of these new technologies across, a tour and a marketing campaign for them. So that's cool. And then we're doing Stephen Hawking. So I'm partnered with a company called Art Media, and they're already doing a holographic project with him. So they've essentially doing a night with Stephen Hawking, but it's his hologram, and that's going to be all over Asia at the same time. So he'll be in multiple venues.
Is he doing it live and then it's being broadcast?
It's a bit of both. So there's a bit of pre-record and then there's a live Q&A. Because that's holographic, and then I'm doing the virtual reality companion piece to that. So the thing we're doing will be scanning him in a number of different ways, using every technology available because it's Stephen Hawking.
Right.
And then you'll put your virtual reality headset on, and you'll be on a space platform with Stephen Hawking, and then he will take you on an adventure around the universe.
Wait, where's that going to be?
That's going to be everywhere. So
how can I do that?
Yeah, so I'll bring it back. We'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll put you in the headset. That'll be probably end of the summer.
Fuck yeah. Awesome.
And you'll be in a black hole with Stephen Hawking, and he'll be explaining it to you.
That's exactly what I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, me too. This is where VR actually is better than a movie, right?
Yeah.
He's done that actually as a film with Errol Morris called A Brief History of Time, and it's cool. But he's essentially, you're watching it on a television set. Being able to walk around, look at him, eye to eye, and then suddenly transport you into this universe is that's like a dream, So this is when the technology suddenly really starts showing its true
I would love
self,
to drop some acid and do that.
can do that again and again.
That would be
try all sorts of different drugs each time, Yeah, it's so that's exciting, and we're doing and that can be an endless project because basically Intel helped build Stephen's voice. So essentially, we can just keep that going.
The voice he uses now.
Yeah, he actually they give him a new voice every year, incidentally, and he doesn't want them. So they're becoming more human all the time. So their voice recognition, speech recognition programs, and he's like, well, this is my voice now, so I can't change it. So they've been for like 15, 20 years giving him upgrades every year, and he just declines. Thanks, but no thanks. Because, it wouldn't be the same if he sounded human.
Yeah.
It sounds like a cyborg, and it fits almost.
People associate that voice with him.
Yeah, it's his voice. I mean, even though it's actually public domain voice, anyone can use that. It's his voice now. So, but you can type dialogue into that, So essentially, that's an endless journey through time. Another artist actually who's working with Intel, Eliza McNitch, she's doing a similar thing with Carl Sagan. And Carl's no longer with us, but his, there's tons and tons of amazing voice recordings of his.
He's one of my favorites, and he's such a, I feel like he's like my astrophysical uncle, just like a really, 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 gives me some hope for the universe.
Well, he had, he was almost like, an amazing futurist because he was predicting stuff that's happening right now, which is fairly incredible. Stephen Hawking never really did that, but he's got another level of knowledge that we don't have. So I think that's what I'm trying to focus on right now. This is my punk moment, right? Okay, I don't want to waste this year just doing fluff, and just doing stuff that doesn't matter. Science is under attack right now. The history, like creationists are running the school system. So,
have you seen SNL's skit on Davos?
No,
ridiculous, crazy.
I haven't seen it. That to me is dangerous. So, putting information, factual information, science, inspiration out there is. I think that's our job right now. Not to just entertain. So I think education and definitely kind of letting the music stuff, the artist I'm working with, Run the Jewels is an artist I did a video for. They're like the Resistance to me, They're meaningful. It's not pop music. It's like Public Enemy at its prime, and that, it mattered. So I think that's how I'm kind of aligning my projects right now, is like, does it matter? If it doesn't matter, I'm not doing it.
You bring the music back. You bring some Richard Feynmans back.
There you go.
Bring some Sagans back.
Yeah.
And those, we was talking with my girlfriend, and I thought to myself, where are the thought leaders? Where are they now? And if they're not alive, we should bring them back.
Yeah.
Why can't Martin Luther King come back? Bring him back.
We need people like that right now. And I think we're talking to the Nelson Mandela estate. There's all these estates are, they're all about maintaining the legacy. Yeah. So it has to be, it's very precise what you do, and you don't sell.
You want to respect the family.
Sell that character to Budweiser commercial.
Sell them to Marvel. They're eating everything.
But there's a wealth of knowledge there, and I think it's there aren't those contemporary figures standing up who are we've got Bernie and Elizabeth Warren. I mean, I think they're great, but they're not that.
Yeah.
And they never will be. So, I'm all for that. Like the holographic stuff is a brilliant way, and it's actually not hologram. It's a misleading statement, right? Hologram is just one thing you can do with a virtual character. So it's actually virtualizing the character.
Yeah.
The deceased artists that's called digital resurrection. That's what they call that. So that is like huge, like bringing people back when we need them.
It's a little bit like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
It
is.
Take it out of the amber.
Yeah. And then, and then wreak havoc. Kill all the kids in the park.
Gonna have a park full of like evil Sagans.
Just giant Sagan. But then the distribution platform, like seeing a live hologram. I mean, everyone remembers the Tupac one. It was at Coachella. It wasn't any less meaningful than seeing Snoop Dogg or Dr. Dre. It was more,
especially when they're alongside their contemporaries who they were actually. Exactly. I would love. I watched a Feynman physics lecture last weekend, and I thought to myself, this is pretty good, but I wish I could see him live.
Yeah.
Why not?
But honestly, I think the VR, the room scale VR version of that would be even more powerful, because that's one-on-one, right? A hologram, you're in a theater still, it's a proscenium stage, and there's a character standing on the stage. That's better than watching a video.
Right.
But then better than watching someone from a seated position is standing in front of them.
Yeah.
And they're talking to you, and then they're showing you what they're talking about, in a virtual world, taking you on these journeys. So it's really powerful medium, and I think that's what no one's really using it for this yet. So that's what I'm most excited about in my career right now is actually using the medium to transport people, to show them important things through history. We're doing another project which is actually time traveling through the wonders of the world. So one of the wonders of the world is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, which is in Iran, which is now a flattened car park. So actually going to somewhere like that, and then in a VR headset, just taking people back 1,000 years and seeing the culture, like seeing you have a different perspective about that country when you know the origin story. It's the same thing with anything. So I think there are loads of documentaries about this, but they've hit a wall in terms of impact.
What they can demonstrate. There's a certain experiential quality. When I went to Egypt and I saw the pyramids, it's different than watching a video.
Completely. But this is closer to being there, and if you can then travel back and forth, it's really powerful seeing the destruction or the creation of a civilization in front of your very eyes.
I would love to see the libraries at Alexandria.
Yeah.
I would love to see, I'd love to see even something that's currently, still around, but the construction of the Statue of Liberty, seeing it being built. And I think it'll help to put into context for a lot of young people where these things we take for granted came from.
Oh, good, yeah.
The
struggle.
The struggle.
It's like, it just seems like it's just part of the furniture right now, but the things people, they fought for the right to build these things in some cases. So
tearing down the Berlin Wall. I mean, if you really want to see history.
Yeah. Well, actually, going back to Jurassic Park, I mean, now that more than ever is important, If you're being taught that dinosaurs don't exist at school, then, you got to combat that. You're wrong, and this is... Take a look at this.
I mean, I anyone who would combat that idea...
Well, the woman who's in charge of the education system is going to combat that, and she's telling people that, we have guns in schools because of grizzly bears. I mean, that's if that's the number one threat.
You have to look at it with a little bit of
Yeah.
There has to be some comedy to it.
Who's going to play her though? I love this idea. Someone posted on Facebook this week that all of Trump's cabinet should be played by women, right?
You see the Sean
Rosie O'Donnell.
You see the Sean Spicer?
It's phenomenal. Yeah.
I mean, it was wonderful.
But Rosie O'Donnell playing Steve Bannon. I mean, that has to happen. Alec Baldwin's hosting on Saturday, right? 17th record-breaking.
Who's hosting? Alec Baldwin?
Alec Baldwin's doing the whole show, right?
Of course.
So they have to bring Rosie O'Donnell.
I mean, he's employed for life again, but he's been again. I choose to look at it with some humor.
Well, you have to. You laugh or cry, right? So let's laugh through it. But at the same point, you've got this is a great use of your voice, and I think it just needs to be everywhere. You shouldn't be able to escape this next 4 years. There should be no safe hiding place.
It's kind of like a Clockwork Orange. Just hold your eyes open. Hold your eyes
just
open.
Keep don't put your head in the sand. It's very indulgent. I read a really good article yesterday about people who are saying they want to stay out of it. They don't want to get political, and it's a very it's entitlement behavior, right? Yeah. It's just saying, you know what, I don't need to worry about this. I'm okay.
Yeah.
it's horrible situation. It's very the opposite of empathy. So I think everyone has to get politicized right now, or they're just like they're not at the table.
I was down at the protest at LAX, and people were freaking out,
Yeah.
And I posted some stuff on social media, and I actually took it down because in the comments people were starting to attack each other. I was like, God, I want to post this up here, and people were like, fuck this, fuck that. I was like,
that's the most that's the most disheartening aspect of this whole thing is the comments section.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just reading these, amazing articles.
Should turn the comments off.
Oh, the comments are like, Kate, you get a whole strand of really positive, this is amazing, this is the truth, thank you for posting. And then suddenly you get the trolls.
If one troll enters, though, the whole thread turns bad.
It just turns bad, yeah. It is. It's like a virus. And it's, but what my current hobby is then clicking on the troll page.
Oh, yeah. They always have 5 followers.
Who is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No profile picture.
It's tragic. It's like it's a tragic section of society where you're just looking at these people. I got 3 in a row from Alabama, not to point a finger at Alabama, but I was like, okay. But they were just they look like they had terrible lives. And I'm like, it's like I don't know if you watched the last season of South Park.
Yeah.
But the dad was like the troll, right? And he has this nice life. He's Jewish. He's, but he's just bored.
Yeah.
And he's just in his bedroom. And it's like an alter ego for him. It's not like he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
He has an alter ego to be a troll. And I was like, this is probably horribly accurate.
Yeah. It gives a small burst of weird dopamine to get response.
Power. It's like you feel you have some power over people, or something over them.
Yeah.
And it's it's completely virtual. There's nothing real about that power, but it can affect people negatively, Yeah. It's horrible. But that I've obsessed with the comments page right now. That's the worst thing. It's like a horror film. Every time. I'm just waiting for the troll to pop up, and then suddenly here we go. It's normally about 15 comments in. You'll get one.
My girlfriend does YouTube videos, and she has a beauty channel.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll post a video, and she'll get about 15 comments, and then about comment 16, someone will say, at minute 3:17, her nose looks like a piece of poop. And I'm like, why were you?
What? Yeah.
Who? And then of course the trolls come in, and then look at her at 4:27. I'm like, so you watched the whole video?
See, I think at least on Facebook you get to see their page.
Yeah.
Right. The YouTube trolls are even worse, I think, because they're anonymous.
The username will be like, "Fuck you."
Yeah. They're like, there's no picture, they've got no videos up. It's like there's no way of judging them.
Facebook isn't as bad as YouTube or Instagram or Twitter.
Yeah.
Facebook is not as because Facebook has there's some sort of personal identity attached to that, and your mom is on your Facebook.
Yeah.
So you try not to say the same things.
I think it's good that I read that Reddit yesterday. They're taking a lot of the alt-right sites down, and I'm like, okay, this is not in the amendment. It's prohibiting free speech, but fuck that.
Yeah.
Just get rid of these people.
I think there's this. Again, this is obviously a biased opinion because of who I am, but I think it's in the best interest of everyone.
Yeah.
To take it out. I don't think it's helping anybody.
It's not. It's like saying it's just hate speech. I don't understand how constructive that is for society to allow that to spread. It should almost be a criminal act.
Yeah. To say, well, the KKK can legally exist. Why should they be able to? Why? Why? It's not.
I mean, today, what was it? He's the Muslim Brotherhood are now a terrorist organization, right? As of whenever he decides. So why not make the KKK a terrorist organization?
Yeah.
I mean, they're an alt-right.
I'm
more worried about white people in America than any Muslim.
Yeah.
In terms of and you look at the list of who's been shot by who and killed by who. It's young children are the scariest, right?
More
They're much
kids
worse than terrorists.
are dying. More people are dying from lawnmower accidents than terrorists.
No, it was guns with toddlers carrying guns. I think was higher.
Yeah.
Than any terrorist stuff in the last. Post 9/11.
Well, Muslim terrorist stuff. There've been a lot of American terrorists.
Yeah.
Just really deranged teenage white kids going in and just murdering churches and murdering movie theaters.
No, it's the access to guns plus, prescription drugs. I mean, these are, I look back at England sometimes, and I've been here 5 years, and I think, well, we've got a lot of shit going on in England, but there's a few things we just didn't go down that road. One was no one has a gun, which is great.
Yeah.
And the prescription drug thing, like the idea that, everyone's on some sort of medication, didn't really happen either. Like people are just, everyone's depressed in England, so we just get on with it, It's always raining, everyone's depressed, we just go to the pub, and get over it. Just have a few pints and shut up and have a packet of crisps. But here you get addicted to fucking painkillers, and then your mind just warps slowly over a period of time.
Yeah.
And then, I'm feeling unusual today, and I happen to have a gun, So I think a lot of the worst things about the culture now stems from those two things combined,
Yeah.
And that's something that's alien to me because we didn't have either of those problems. We have a lot of other problems.
I find that traveling around the world too, I've noticed that America is certainly not the only country, but we're still very weird about the racial thing.
Yeah.
There's like a hard, it's different. Every country has a little bit of it, but it's a very hard line here. You are black, you are Mexican.
Yeah.
And we're a melting pot, but we're also very aware where everyone is.
And I think a really big class system in England, actually, which I don't notice that as much here.
Just
it's
one big
race
middle class.
Here. Yeah.
It's racist here.
Yeah. But there it's like you're born into a certain, you should stay in your class system. But it's not so rigid in like the gender issues aren't as strong and the race issues. But the class issues are high. Whereas here it's the other way around. It's like, there are genuine second-class citizens because of color.
Yeah.
Especially in certain areas of America. I think, obviously the big cities are very cosmopolitan.
Because they have to be.
Yeah.
But Alabama,
that big bit in the middle. I fly over.
the whole
scary
country.
Bit in the middle. The whole country.
The scary middle bit. The scary 90%.
Anyone who didn't go to the coast is scary.
Well, look at the election map. California, New York. Did she win Florida? She lost Florida.
It was close, though. It was closer than they thought, but she didn't win it. Yeah.
It's always close in Florida. They always fuck us. I'm from Florida.
But Portland, all the cool places seem to be like down the edge.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would you want to live in the middle if you've got a really nice ocean out there? It's fucking hot enough as it is. It's way too hot for me. Look at the weather outside. It's amazing.
Well, today it's okay.
It's foggy. No, but it was sunny when I arrived.
Yeah, it was.
And now it's foggy.
This is the worst. This is the worst it can get pretty much here, though.
No, but that's what I mean. It's like we're in a rarefied atmosphere. But why wouldn't you want that? Why do you want to be in like Arizona? Actually, a lot of friends I have live in Arizona actually, and they're saying, "Oh, it's great for food."
Indiana.
It's just too hot all day long. You're in air conditioning. I want to be in an environment that I can go outside.
Well, everyone else does. That's why it's so crowded here. Shit.
There's 500,000 English people in Santa Monica. I'm just warning you now. I'm wondering when we're going to get banned. That would be basically all the restaurants in Santa Monica would close overnight. It would just put us out of business. If all the English people left, it would be like no cars on the road. There'd be like a couple of bikes. Honestly, I don't think anyone else lives in Santa Monica.
Yeah,
especially this bit.
It's my favorite spot. Peter Martin, futurist, my friend. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. Covered a lot of subjects there.
I feel like it was
okay.
I feel like it was really, really good.